can't see me, you Stevie. Wondering how I reach more evolutions than Evie and make it look easy.
What is up, Earth's mightiest subscribers? It's your boy Ernie, the Blerd Without Fear. Welcome back to the channel. We're back for another round of the best comics this week. This actually, I think, is the toughest one. This is the toughest week for comics I think I have had in a long time, trying to figure out what to put on the list. I kept literally going back and scratching things off and replacing them with other things and moving things around. Man, this easily could have been a best 10 comics of the week, but we're not doing that. We're just gonna stick to our customary 5 and leave it at that. Let's get right to it. First and foremost is gonna be Absolute Batman number 8. This is a really awesome issue that highlights one of my favorite Batman villains of all time, Mr. Freeze. I was always curious how they were going to pull this character off in the Absolute universe, especially even more so once I learned, some months back that we were going to be seeing this character. Scott Snyder knew that he needed to bring something different. He knew you couldn't just bring same old Mr. Freeze. We've seen that a million times. So what does he do? He introduces a Mr. Freeze who does not rely on a special cryogenic suit or a cryo gun. He came up with something that honestly was downright terrifying. The Absolute Mr. Freeze is fully unleashed, or rather unthawed, in this issue, and as we saw before, this is a whole new era for the Iceman who cometh. He's no longer a popsicle in a beefy suit of armor or wielding the cryo gun as I mentioned earlier. This version is a man transformed by a prehistoric virus unleashed from the Ice Age in the modern day. And while he's a wiry little man, he is fast, I would even dare say powerful. We actually see the Absolute Batman get his shit rocked by this version of Mr. Freeze in ways that is just absolutely positively freaking hilarious. Even Batman has to question, why is he fighting this guy? Like, how do you fight this guy? And Mr. Freeze he's wild. Mr. Freeze of previous iterations was a lot more of a sympathetic character. In this, he's not really so much a sympathetic character. He is a whole psychopath. I don't know, almost like a Hannibal Lecter style character, and just made him Mr. Freeze. That's kind of what you get in this. It was really nice to see a Mr. Freeze who is more than a match for Batman under normal circumstances. Back in the day, Mr. Freeze was a bit of a threat, but as time has progressed, Mr. Freeze has kind of become one of those villains that, well, Batman doesn't necessarily just flat out embarrass, but a lot of his villains have been around so long that it's really easy to sometimes overlook the fact. A lot of Batman's villains, he can piece up like that. And in this, well, yes, Mr. Freeze is going to be defeated. It's not easily. This is a fun little aside, and it doesn't overstay its welcome. I honestly think it could have hung around for another issue or two, but I get why we're not doing that, because it just would be too much. I feel like you run the risk of overdoing it. All in all, this sets up the next arc perfectly. We got to see Bruce actually communing with his childhood friends, all of which are, in this universe, they are people who would otherwise be villains in the Prime Earth continuity. Characters like Riddler, Penguin, Two-Face, Killer Croc. Catwoman is also a part of that friend group, but she's not really hanging around with the main group all the time. She's always off doing her own thing, and I'm pretty sure we'll see why here shortly. But seeing all of these characters come together to bring Bruce back down to earth, especially in the wake of learning more about what he's really been up to, we also get to see a little bit of what's gonna happen to one of his friends when they run afoul of Arkham, the Arkham of this universe, and how this is gonna tie into what's going on with Bane. Next up is gonna be I Was a Fashion School Serial Killer number 2. I'm a huge fan of Doug Wagner and Daniel Hilliard's Materials series, whether it is plush or plastic, vinyl, or this, it doesn't really matter. I have come to find I've liked pretty much everything they've done up to this point. And I Was a Fashion School Serial Killer has yet to disappoint me on any level. This series follows Rennie, who is a character that was introduced during the Vinyl series. And while we've already gotten to know a little bit about her, it's really cool to actually get to know her better here, watching her go through fashion school and kind of taking up what are, like, if you're a fan of horror movies and you've seen things like, you know, Last Night in Soho, the setup and premise of it kind of starts off similarly with some very similar vibes. Actually, part of me kind of wondered if in the making of this series was Last Night in Soho something that was, you know, playing on repeat while the brainstorming for this was going on. We get some very big character development from Rennie, and for those unfamiliar with the miniseries Vinyl, all of her friends are dead. The few people who she opened herself up to, who actually understand the real her, are gone and buried. So the fact that she's opening up to friends by issue 2 of her own solo series is pretty impressive. And because of this, you know, her getting closer to these new friends, particularly the character Sophie, it's likely no surprise that when something bad happens to Sophie, Rennie goes off. Rennie is a killer, so of course she's gonna lose it and go take care of the problem. And that's not a bad thing. This is what she does, and honestly, it doesn't seem like she's interested in turning over a new leaf or anything like that. Her killing someone is just Tuesday, so it's not that big of a deal to her. But the cool part is that we get to see Rennie catch not 1, but 3 bodies this issue, and do so in hilarious fashion. Now, one thing I really appreciated about this issue are the callbacks to the other materials comics, more specifically the Plastic series, which there's a movie ticket that's shown a couple of times where you can see the title of the film is Plastic, so I thought that was a pretty, you know, interesting touch there. I like that. Right now, I think Vinyl is probably my absolute favorite, but Plastic is a very close second. So it was really cool to see that. And we also in this issue get to see a little bit more of the professor teaching Rennie's classes, who seems very eager and, you know, very supportive of everything that Rennie is coming up with in class. Whether or not she knows the truth behind what Rennie is doing, that's another story altogether. And honestly, I would not be shocked if we learn at some point that her teacher is in on what's going on, because she has a very keen eye for detail. It's pretty much showcased in this issue that she looks at Rennie's outfit and can very clearly tell what everything is, and maybe even find some symbolism in it, even if it's symbolism that Rennie wasn't even thinking about. But I think her teacher is way more perceptive than she lets on. But now let's get into one of my personal favorite segments, and that is Fuck Shit of the Week. Now, under normal circumstances, I usually prefer to highlight what I feel is malfeasance on the part of somebody in the comics industry or a related industry. In this case, it's actually more funny than it is anything else, and I say that because we finally got the Ironheart trailer. It finally happened. Marvel finally got off their ass and hit publish on a trailer that has been sitting in the drafts since August of 2024. It only took them, like, I think we have, what, 41 days left until the show comes out. So now Ironheart is the least advertised show in Disney Plus history. And if you don't believe me, here, I'll pull up some stuff over here. You can look at that and you can argue with your mama, but don't argue with me. But I know what you're thinking. You're like, okay, Blur, okay, the trailer's out, so how is this fuck shit? Well, okay, I'm gonna explain that to you. They released the trailer on the day that DC was releasing the Superman trailer. Now, I know what some of y'all are thinking. Oh man, DC's out of pocket for dropping their trailer on the same day that Marvel was. But here's the thing. James Gunn had already said he was dropping the trailer before Marvel said they were dropping the trailer. Now, it's not to say that, you know, oh, well, Marvel specifically picked this day, but it does feel kind of dirty that one day James Gunn's like, yep, I'm dropping the trailer on this day, roughly around this time, and then Marvel comes out like, and mind you, a whole day after that, and is like, oh yeah, by the way, we're releasing our trailer the same day. The reason why I think it's kind of messed up is not because I think, oh, this is something so inherently wrong. No, but I know how people are. I've been doing this for a long time. People don't know how to walk and chew bubble gum at the same time. And it's always gonna come down to an either or my tribe versus this tribe. That's just how people are, and I've just accepted. It's not how I am. I actually don't think either trailer is so much better than the other. I actually think both trailers do a relatively good job of explaining what their premises are and giving me a reason to want to watch either one. When it comes to, like, if there's any one thing the Superman trailer has that Ironheart doesn't, there is a more obvious emotional arc in the Superman trailer that I picked up on that I don't know if people picked up with Ironheart, because I am more familiar with the character. There are certain people who show up in that trailer that when I saw them, I was like, this is gonna hurt for some folks. There's gonna be some people who are gonna get hurt by this. You know, people who are more familiar with Superman, it's gonna be a lot easier to hit those notes than it is gonna be for people, you know, in regards to Ironheart. I don't have a problem with that. I do appreciate, however, that James Gunn was like, okay, fine, y'all are putting your trailer out the same day as us. Ironheart got 3 hours. She got 3 hours to do her shit, and then we going the fuck off. That's basically what happened. They're like, all right, 3 hours, all right, put that shit out, They had enough time. She had enough time. They knew, Marvel knew what this was. Marvel, you wrong. Marvel is wrong for putting that trailer out all the other day. They knew, Marvel knew, they knew. They are purposefully putting this in the shadow of everything. It's like, yeah, we'll just release trailer of Superman's out. Everybody be talking about Superman. They won't be thinking about Ironheart. Marvel, that's some fuck shit. We were just talking about DC, so I guess it should be no surprise that our next entry is gonna be Supergirl #1. Supergirl #1, I was really looking forward to this because I'm a huge fan of Sophie Campbell. I really loved all her work that she had done on the Ninja Turtle series, even before she took over as the main writer of it, but even more so after the fact. What I was really impressed by was the energy that she brought to this. Like, not to say I was surprised by it, because I know she can do it, but you're just seeing how thoughtful this series was for fans of the character. I mean, bravo. I'm not the hugest Supergirl fan by any stretch of the imagination. I just know enough about the character and have enough appreciation for the character that I can enjoy a comic about said character. And Sophie tackles Supergirl in a way I think is really fun. She does a very good job showcasing what I think is a pretty awesome love letter to the classic Supergirl stories, even going back to a pre-crisis era of Supergirl, and also at the same time she's not ignoring any of the previous Supergirl stuff that's more recent, even addressing, you know, briefly some elements from the Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow series from Tom King. Kara is going back to her old stomping grounds of Midvale, and in doing so, she has walked into what is effectively probably one of the strangest scenarios a Supergirl can find herself in. When she returns to Midvale, something's not right. There are pictures of Supergirl everywhere. Everyone's talking about Supergirl. Her name is on the lips and hearts of pretty much all of the citizens of the town, but it's not her. Like, the woman in question, yes, she's dressed like Supergirl, but it's very obvious it's not Kara. It's someone else. And like, I don't want to give away all of the, you know, the bits, but what I think is really awesome about this is that the Supergirl in question, yes, it's obvious it is not Kara, because obviously Kara's sitting right there. But I love the fact that Sophie made this version of Supergirl a thick baddie.
God damn.
Like, I was like, ooh! I was like, I'm not gonna hold y'all. I want this to be Supergirl now. Can this be the new Supergirl? I need this to be the new Supergirl. I don't know who I need to talk to about this at the DC Comics office, but please do not let this character go anywhere. I love to see it. God, this is a cornbread eating girl. Goodness. Anyway, I love it. I'm here for it. But no, the thing is that everyone thinks this woman is Supergirl. Like, full stop. And anyone who sees Kara, they don't see her as Supergirl. You can tell there's some level of mind control or reality shifting going on in this series, because there are people who recognize that Kara is, you know, under the guise of one of her old aliases, Linda Danvers. So at the same time, it seems like the other Supergirl is co-opting those two, even taking advantage of some of Supergirl's old tricks. And without going too much terribly further past that, I just think this series is just having fun. It's having fun with Supergirl. Taking what was, I mean, don't get me wrong, I love Tom King's Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow, but at the same time, that is a book that has its foot on your neck. Like, it is like, no, it is not pulling any punches. It is not trying to be funny. This book is a shift in the opposite direction, but not so much of a hard shift that I think that it doesn't work. It actually works really well. And I love some of the things that are being set up for future issues. The fact that one of Supergirl's old villains, who is kind of one of those more, I guess, characters you should look at as more sympathetic, you can tell they're setting up something really nice for that. And at first it seems like maybe there is nothing that's going to go into that any further than what we get. It's definitely Sophie setting up breadcrumbs to come back to at a later point, whether it's 2 issues from now, 3 issues from now, whatever. But yeah, I think Sophie's got a good handle on Supergirl. This is going to be a book I'm going to be keeping my eye on this. Now, next up is going to be Exquisite Corpses #1. This is a series I have literally seen everybody talking about. I've seen people talking about it in my local comic shops. I've seen people, my comic book peers, and I've seen Image Comics blasting this comic all over the internet waves. I've seen it on all the comic news sites and channels. Exquisite Corpses, it's a really cool book, and honestly, why should I be surprised? It's James Tynion the fourth. James Tynion wrote an amazing story. In other news, water wet. No, it is what it is. I expect greatness from James anytime I pick up a title from him. So when I read this, I was not surprised that I really liked it a lot. I was not surprised at all. Very surprised by the story, but not surprised that I enjoyed it. And for those who want to know what Exquisite Corpses is, I don't want to give away a whole heap of a lot. This is a book that takes place in a little sleepy town, I believe if I remember correctly, called Oak Valley. And it takes place in a version of America where 13 families who are wealthy and powerful, literally the top 1% of the top 1%, they rule the country in secret. Yeah, you still have your government, your mayors, your governors, your senators, your congressmen, and you also have obviously your president, but they are not the people who actually control the direction of the country. It's these 13 families. And of these 13 families, and for the most part, they all represent a particular state, there is one amongst those 13 that rules the other 12. Now, how do they determine who rules the other 12? Is it wealth? Is it power? It's actually a contest. A contest where each of the 12 lower families, they bring a representative to fight on their behalf in a contest, a death match that takes place in a given area. And they have to fight until there's only one left standing. And whosoever wins, the family they represent becomes the new leader of all of the families. And as you might expect, the families hire the best in the biz, ranging from hitmen and assassins, serial killers and psychopaths, genocidal maniacs, ex-military, you name it. We get introduced to a metric buttload of characters in the first issue, and each of them are given enough time to tell you who they are. Even the killers, who admittedly get the least panel time of any of the other characters, save for one. But we do get to know our survivors, the civilians who are caught in the middle of this, and trust me, I'm going to tell you right now, just based on the premise of this book, some of them are going to die. We're getting to know them, I think, a little bit more just because we're going to get to spend more time with them. These people who are running around, well, yes, I don't think all of them are going to die. I don't think you should get attached to too many of them, just based on how the first issue goes. It's just that type of game because the killers aren't just trying to kill the other killers. They're also allowed to take out anyone who they happen to see walking around. One of the things I really love about this is that there's also a tournament bracket at the back of the issue. So you just kind of look at it and keep up with who's gotten got and who is still in it. It's really awesome. You can even kind of put who you think is going to win. I'm thinking about thinking about filling this thing out and kind of making my own. We'll see where we get with that. I don't know. We'll see. But yeah, this was a huge issue. This was 60 pages of salvation right here. I counted. I actually went back and counted. I was like, man, this book is long, but I loved every second of it. And it may seem like this is going to be one of those gratuitous festivals of violence in comic book format. Yeah, it kind of is. It kind of is. Not like, entirely, but you can tell that's the direction it's going to take over the course of it. But one thing you can rest assured on, while it may be a gratuitous festival of violence, it's going to be a gratuitous festival of violence with a purpose and a very clear message. A lot of commentary. These are the things you will probably come to expect if you're even the least bit a fan of James Tynion's other, non-Big Two work. Yeah, if you loved manga like Battle Royale, or if you like novels like The Hunger Games, I feel like there's definitely a lot for you to like in Exquisite Corpses. All right, it is time to do a little bit of Tradespotting. I wanted to highlight a comic that I have really enjoyed, that I think even by my recollection won Best Comedic Comic in last year's Blerd Awards. I Heart Skull Crusher is a story following the 18-year-old Trini Wastelander and her desire to actually play the game she's admired since she was a kid, Screaming Paintball. Yeah, what I said. Screaming Paintball is a game where two teams battle it out in a deathmatch that looks a lot like soccer and hockey had a love child, with whoever scores the most points wins. Now, how do you score points, you might be asking? Killing people on the other team. But you can't just murder anyone. No, there's rules. You can't just shadow realm any old opposing player. You have to take out the player holding the ball. If you take out the player holding the ball, you net 1 point for your team. If you take out a player who doesn't have the ball, you net 2 points, but not for yourself. You net points for the other team. You really want to spend your time trying to get the ball into your opponent's goal as many times as you can, and body parts even count too. Now, in the midst of this game, Trini wants to do nothing more than score all the points and win all the games. Why? Because there's a tournament that's been put into place, and it's one that's going to be for the greatest prize of them all. So Trini is gathering together this ragtag band of Screaming Paintball players and trying to win the ultimate prize. A guaranteed spot on her all-time favorite Screaming Paintball players team, Skull Crusher, the baddest woman, nay, baddest person to ever play Screaming Paintball. This comic is a case study on what happens when you meet your heroes. Will that person disappoint you utterly, or will that person live up to the legend? Now, as you can tell, this book features manga-style artwork in a color format with a story that is pretty damn hilarious and might even drag a tear or two out of you, depending on how cold and dead your heart may or may not be. But I highly recommend it if you want some yucks, and even more so if you want to see a plucky underdog try to win it all. Now, normally this would be the final entry, but I decided this week to add in an honorary mention, because it was too many books that came out. There were too many good books, and this one's actually gonna be really easy because this is a book that's pretty simple to sum up, and that is Invincible Universe Battle Beast #1. I know a lot of people are just kind of getting into the Invincible series because of the Amazon Prime animated series, so I don't want to spoil anything for anyone who has never read the comic, but just so you know, this is a prequel. This takes place somewhere kind of almost in the middle of it. We see Battle Beast, who is still trying to find his ultimate fight, and he encounters some pretty interesting people. We see an interjection at a certain point into the middle of the Invincible comic series, the main storyline of it, and then later on we also see him take on a pretty tough customer that, at least on paper, you would half-ass expect Battle Beast to not be able to take down. But it's a really cool fight. There's some really good stuff going on here. It's really not even a lot of characters involved in this. It's really just Battle Beast as the main character, as you would expect from the title, but also the ship's computer that he is piloting. The ship's computer has a personality of its own as well, and there's some pretty interesting back and forth character interactions with that. Ryan Ottley, honestly, I think is the star of this comic, because his art actually, as you would probably expect from Ryan Ottley, the guy was literally instrumental in a lot of some of the cool aspects of Invincible. So I mean, it shouldn't be a surprise, but a lot of Ryan Ottley's art is doing the heavy lifting here. I can't overstate it. I can't overstate it enough. There's just something about the way that he is able to, even when there's no dialogue going on, the way Ryan is able to get the panels laid out in just such the right way that the point gets across regardless. Chef's kiss. Last and most certainly not least is going to be Transformers #20. We already saw that Megatron was back a couple of issues ago, and while the previous issue was more of a flashback, this issue we're back in the present day with Megatron, and he has come to clean house. Megatron is on the warpath, and he is ready to take the fight to the Autobots. But first things first, he's not worried about Optimus. He is worried about getting his own house in order, particularly in regards to two of my personal favorite Transformers, Astro Train and Starscream. Now, in the case of Astro Train, he has been on a warpath of vengeance himself to try and get back at Megatron for killing the love of his life. And Starscream, well, Starscream is Starscream. Yeah, he's a treacherous, traitorous sumbitch, and Megatron is keenly aware of that, as we saw in the first Energon Universe one-shot from 2024. So now Megatron is exerting his will over both of these Transformers, and as a guy who considers himself a major fan of Astro Train, yeah, this one hurt. And as a fan of Starscream, I was not surprised by anything that happened to Starscream. Yeah, because as much as I love Starscream, I felt he deserved it. This issue was great. It showcased Megatron back in the saddle again, risen to the powers that we know that he can have, and fighting tooth and nail the way we know Megatron can. But also at the same time, this book is not without its heartwarming moments. We get to spend a lot of time with Optimus in this issue, as well as he's talking it out with Spike as they reminisce about the passing of Spike's father and his ultimate fate, that which we really truly do not know. At the end of it all, this is also a very key moment for Optimus, because while we have gotten a lot of time to see Optimus lament his own personal choices and decisions since leaving Cybertron and coming to Earth, here we're actually getting to see just how heavy the crown is on Optimus' head. Optimus is emotionally worn down and broken. Being the leader is hard, especially when you feel like all your friends are dying because of a choice that you made for them. But it's also nice to see that the other Autobots, unsurprisingly so, stand by him. And while we know there are some Autobots who do not agree with Optimus's choices, he is still surrounded by those who believe in his mission statement. And we also get to see the return of some Autobots that were teased many issues ago, it feels like. But they finally make their triumphant introduction into the Energon universe, and that's the aerial bots. While we don't get to see them in combat, it's nice to see them there and that they're actually getting used, and which is something I always felt like the aerial bots, while they were around in the older cartoons, I always feel like they don't get as much love as I feel they deserve. But they are here, they're back. But it's not all wine and roses. While yes, the aerial bots being back is cool, we also have to remember that Ultra Magnus was captured just a few issues ago, and we now know, for the most part, not necessarily where he is, but what is happening to him, or what may happen to him. And for those of you who have not been keeping up, Ultra Magnus spent a good bit of time being in the clutches of Shockwave and being tortured mercilessly by him. So the fact that he is now captured and could potentially be tortured under the care of the United States government, yeah, it's not a good look for Ultra Magnus right now. And considering some things have happened recently over on the G.I. Joe side of things in regards to one of the Autobots running in to the G.I. Joes, maybe this is kind of where we're seeing a little bit more crosstalk in the Energon universe. Not to say that there wasn't any before, but it always kind of seemed like the Transformers were, initially kind of highlighting some G.I. Joe shit, but it seemed like G.I. Joe was more interested in Transformers crossing over than Transformers itself was. Now, seems like those worlds are starting to collide a little bit faster. Before we get out of here, let's get into the Pull Box Report. This week's Pull Box Report is going to be focused on a more singular thing, and that's going to be the IDW Godzilla comics that are coming out right now. A lot of you know me, I'm a huge Tokusatsu guy, so, of course, that means I love Godzilla. Godzilla is back, and probably, I would dare say, better than ever, at least in comic book format. And for those that don't know, Godzilla's been celebrating his 70th anniversary and doing it everywhere. But IDW, I think right now, is doing it the best. Well, yes, we have the Godzilla Heist series and Godzilla vs. America anthology comics, and there's also the, I think, recently released Godzilla Here, There Be Aliens. We also can't forget about the Kaisei era that has been launched. This is a whole new era of Godzilla, kind of similar to Image Comics' Energon universe for Transformers and G.I. Joe. IDW is doing something similar here for Godzilla, making something that acknowledges and shows a lot of love to the original Godzilla movies from the Showa and Heisei and even the more recent Reiwa era stuff, but also at the same time doing its own thing. Godzilla's gotten what I think is a pretty cool redesign, something that kind of looks like the Godzilla you know and love, but has just enough extra sauce on him that you could see him as something that is incredibly different at the same time. Now you're probably asking yourself, what is Kaisei? Why should I care about it? Kaisei is basically just a way to say kaiju energy, or starfish, you take your pick. But in this particular case, kaiju energy, and in this era of Godzilla, Godzilla has been around since his original debut in 1954. However, the fight has changed dramatically over the years for people in America who have been dealing with Godzilla. And it's gotten to the point now where paramilitary forces now exist to combat Godzilla, and it's evolved from that to what is now effectively G-Force, a smaller military unit who wield different types of powers and abilities and power armor suits and weapons, all of which that can take the fight to Godzilla and the other kaiju. Some of them are super strong, some of them have humongous guns that can knock a kaiju on its ass, and there's also some who have telepathic links with kaiju. And while that's all well and good, a new player has stepped into the arena who might even give Godzilla a run for his money. A young man named Jason who possesses the power of a kaiju. And not just any kaiju, Godzilla. Now, as you expect with just about any Godzilla story, yeah, Godzilla is going to be the city-destroying monster, and the humans are always going to be trying to find a way to stop him. But as you might also expect, sometimes in Godzilla stories, there's a bigger monster, and maybe Godzilla and humanity might have to work together in order to stop it. But in this particular case, what I really like, well, yes, there is a bigger monster who is undeniably one of the coolest looking monsters I think I've seen in recent memory for Godzilla face off against. It's difficult to say whether or not G-Force and Godzilla are going to be able to coexist long enough in order to stop this new threat. And while Godzilla is the first ongoing series for the King of Monsters in over a decade, it's not necessarily the only series you need to keep an eye out for. Godzilla's gonna be coming out July 23rd, which is gonna be the week of San Diego Comic-Con. But I also wanna point out that the cutoff to get this pre-ordered at your LCS, to get this in your pull box, the cutoff date is gonna be June 9th. So don't wait too long, because I have a feeling this book is gonna be flying off the shelves. Now, this isn't the only book either. There are also gonna be two other titles. One called Godzilla Escape the Dead Zone. This is gonna be a series about the Pacific Northwest area that is hinted at in the mainline Godzilla series as having been completely destroyed, and there's no life within that dead zone. However, that's a lie. There is someone walking the dead zone, someone that even the kaiju fear to mess with in that area. And it's a person who is a little bit of a first for the Toho Godzilla canon. A half man, half kaiju hybrid. This particular comic looks like it's gonna be pretty awesome. It kind of gives me Ultra Mega vibes for those who are familiar with that series. But also at the same time, it's also gonna be a huge first for Godzilla. We've never had a half human, half kaiju before in the series, at least not directly. I mean, there have been some vague almost attempts at that, but this is going to be the absolute first of its kind, so I'm really excited for this one. This is actually going to be coming out on August the 6th, and the pre-order cutoff date for this one's going to be June the 30th. So make sure you get on that one. I think this is another one that people are going to be talking about and are going to be really pleasantly surprised by. There's also, and last but not least, Starship Godzilla is going to be about a ragtag band of pilots who I'm under the impression are going to be piloting Mechagodzilla. Or at the very least, Mechagodzilla will be a part of the series on some level. But regardless of all that, the main bread and butter of this particular series is that it's going to be bringing together what I think is one of the more interesting elements of Godzilla canon that really has never been fully fleshed out. And that's all the different alien species that pop up during a lot of the different Godzilla films. This comic is going to find a way to bring all of those different races, ranging all the way back from the Showa era to the current Reiwa era. It's going to find a way to bring all of that into a nice, neat little canon. Or at least, that's what the series promises. This will be coming out October 1st, and the pre-order cutoff date for it is going to be August the 25th. That's the best comics this week. I hope you all enjoyed. Thank you for all the love and energy and everything. And once again, if you enjoyed this video on any level, please make sure that you hit that subscribe button and tap that notification bell if you haven't done so already. That way you don't miss out on anything. So make sure you hit that like button too. It really helps the channel out tremendously by pushing this video out to more people like yourself. Thank you all so much for your time and energy, and I'll see you for the best comics next week.